After the college entrance exam, my stepsister Tran Nguyen Tam was admitted to Tsinghua University, while I, Tran Nguyen So, who ranked first in our cohort, failed the exam and could only choose the path of studying abroad. Suspecting something was wrong, I asked my father, Tran Quoc Dan, to investigate, but he immediately forced me to leave the country that very night. During a layover, I was robbed and missed my flight. In the end, with no money at all, I wandered in a foreign land and froze to death in the middle of a snowy night. When I opened my eyes, I had returned to that exact day. The day I had a fierce argument with my father, and strangely, I could now hear everyone's inner thoughts. If Nuokso can't get into any top universities here, sending her abroad first isn't a bad idea. That bitch will be dead the moment she gets on the plane. Soon the entire Tran group will belong to us. Tran Yukso is so lucky, didn't even score enough to get into college, but still gets to study abroad. Half an hour ago, I suddenly woke up from a strange dream. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw 3 people sitting on the sofa in front of me. Still dazed, I heard 3 familiar voices in my head. That's when I realized I had not only been reborn, but could also hear people's thoughts. Seeing me remain silent, my father cleared his throat. Nuok, so what's wrong? Didn't you say you had something to say? Tran Quoc Dan frowned at me, his deep and steady voice making everyone instinctively sit up straight. Then I remembered today was the day the college entrance exam results were announced. In my past life, I suspected something was wrong with my scores, so I called my father over. I asked him to look into the results again, but he insisted on sending me abroad. In the end, I died miserably in a foreign land. That bitch is trying to pull some tricks again, but whatever, she won't live much longer anyway. A voice suddenly echoed in my head. I looked toward the source of that voice. It was my stepmother, Tu Mong Wan, sitting next to my father. She looked at me with gentle eyes, smiling kindly, but I felt an icy chill in my heart and clenched my fists. In my past life, I had been fooled terribly by that face. I once truly believed she treated me like her own daughter. 10 years after my biological mother passed away, my father remarried Tu Mong Wang. She brought along her daughter Tran Nguyen Tam to live with us. For the past 3 years, Tu Mong Wan had always treated me like her own child, even more considerate and caring than my father. Before I died, I once resented my father. He had broken promises, missed my birthday celebration, leaving me waiting until midnight. He had attended company banquets and forgotten my mother's death anniversary, which hurt me deeply. I blamed him, I hated him. If only he had rechecked the test results. If only he hadn't forced me to leave. Maybe I wouldn't have died in a foreign country. Thinking about the thoughts I had just heard, I glanced again at the 3 people sitting before me. So Tu Mong Wan wanted me dead, while Tran Quoc Dan only wanted me to succeed abroad. Now that I think about it, perhaps I trusted Tu Mong Wan too much. Everything I asked her to tell my father, maybe he never actually heard. Nuok, so if you're not going to speak, then let me. I want you to study abroad. Tran Quoc Dan's words pulled me from my thoughts. Just like in my past life, he brought up studying abroad. I lowered my head and thought for a moment, then looked him straight in the eye. Dad, I don't want to go abroad. He froze, seemingly not expecting me to refuse. After all, with my current exam score, I had virtually no chance of getting into any domestic universities. My stepmother, Tu Mong Wan, quietly clenched her hands, pretending to be worried Nuok. So if you don't go abroad with your score, you definitely can't get into a proper university. I smiled slightly, Mum. I've decided to repeat the year. Her face turned pale instantly and her thoughts screamed, "Repeat the year. This bitch is more cunning than I thought. If she doesn't leave the country, all my plans will be ruined. That whole pile of money, will it all go to waste?" She quickly adjusted her expression and continued to persuade me. "Nuok, so repeating a year is very hard. Your father wants to send you abroad for further education. It's a good opportunity. I still smiled and replied, "Mum, I know you care about me, but I'm not willing to accept this. I've always been top of the class, yet this time my score isn't even enough for a proper university. I don't believe I could have done that badly. So I want to repeat the year to prove myself. Mum, Dad, you'll understand and support me, right?" At this moment, Tran Nuoc Tam anxiously spoke up. "Sis, are you saying you suspect the exam results?" Then she quickly added, "Maybe you filled in the wrong answer sheet after the test or misbubbled your answers. You've always been smart. How could your score be so low? Otherwise, I filled in the wrong sheet." Whether I made mistakes or not, would she know better than I do? I didn't expose her. I just smiled and looked her straight in the eyes. If you say so, then it's even more reason for me to repeat the year, isn't it? With my academic ability, getting into Tsinghua or Peking University wouldn't be hard at all. My father sat silently on the sofa, deep in thought, his brows tightly furrowed. After a moment, he spoke, his voice steady and low. "All right. If that's your decision, I'll support you." Tu Mongwan widened her eyes, her mouth opened as if to say something, but then got stuck in her throat, unable to make a sound. But I clearly heard her inner voice, "What, this brat's not going abroad? Doesn't that mean all the money I spent goes down the drain? This damn girl keeps ruining my plans again and again." Her face turned pale for a few seconds, then instantly returned to its usual gentle expression. I gave a soft smile and looked at her. "Mum, then I'll head to my room to start planning my revision schedule." Upstairs, back in my room, I took out paper and pen and began writing down the events from my previous life. But before I got far, there was a knock at the door. It was Tran Nuoc Tam. She pushed the door open and walked in. How should I phrase it to get her to give me money? I need to be clever this time. Hearing her inner thoughts, I slightly curled my lips. Tran Nuoc Tam spoke, "I have a favor to ask, sister." She took my hand and whined, "Big sis, the handbag brand just released a new model. Can you lend me some money?" At that moment, a memory came rushing back. In my previous life, she often acted cute to ask me for things. Because I truly saw her as my real sister, and I wasn't materialistic, I always gave her whatever she wanted, as long as I could afford it. On her birthday once, I even spent all my savings from the entire year to buy her a limited edition jewelry set. Yet, behind my back, she constantly schemed to ruin me, never wanting me to live in peace. I paused, then asked, "How much do you need?" She looked up, grinning ear to ear. "I knew you were the best, not much, just 100,000 will do. 10,000. And each time the amount just gets bigger." I smiled faintly. "All right, take this card." The next morning, while scrolling through my phone leisurely, I suddenly saw a post by Tran Nuoc Tam on her personal page. The picture showed her standing in front of a gleaming red sports car. The caption read, "University entrance exam gift from Daddy Dearest." I scrolled down to read the comments. Wow, I'm so jealous. An entire car as an exam gift. Feels like that girl is more like President Tran's real daughter than Tran Nuoc So. Rumour says Tran Nuoc So messed up the exam paper code, didn't score well, probably didn't get any gift at all. Finally, Tran Nuoc So has fallen. Tran Nuoc Tam didn't reply to any of the comments, nor did she explain anything. In the following days, she continued to post pictures flaunting her new designer bags. It was as if she knew I couldn't do anything, so she freely let others compare her to me in the comments. I opened our chat window. "Tam, can I have my card back?" The message showed as read, but no reply came. I calmly closed the phone. That evening, just as I went down for dinner, Dad returned home. He was normally very busy and rarely came back during workdays. He sat in the living room, his face cold, a chilling aura surrounding him. Aunt Chu looked worried, but I caught a glimpse of satisfaction flickering in her eyes. I didn't miss it. I walked closer, feigning concern. "Dad, what's wrong? Why are you home today?" "What's wrong? Slam!" He slammed a stack of papers on the table and shouted at me in anger, "Tran Nuoc, So, is this what you call exam preparation? I gave you the card and this is how you spend money recklessly. Do you even know how much you've spent in the past 2 days? I froze beside the table, picking up the stack. It was a detailed statement of expenses, sports car designer handbags, totaling nearly 10 million yuan. Right at that moment, Tran Nuok Tam walked in. She was dressed up, carrying her newly bought luxury handbag. Noticing the tense atmosphere, she quickly moved toward Aunt Chu, curling up beside her. It wasn't me. I don't know anything, I replied coldly, handing the statement back to Dad. This money wasn't spent by me. Aunt Chu immediately jumped in, Nuok. So I know you're upset, but you can't lie. These transactions are clearly listed. How could you spend nearly 10 million in 2 days, including buying a car? At the mention of the car, Tran Nuok Tam visibly flinched and darted a quick glance down at the statement. I continued coldly. It really wasn't me. If that's what you're saying, little sister, why don't you explain for me what's with the car and the nearly 10 million yuan? The moment I finished, Tran Nuok Tam's face turned pale as paper. No, it's not. I just… What do you mean? My father turned to me, stunned. I answered calmly. A few days ago, she said she didn't have enough money for a bag and borrowed my card. I didn't think much of it, so I gave it to her. At that, Tu's face turned green, but she immediately grabbed her daughter's hand. Tam, what did you buy? You didn't spend the money right. I know you've always been so soft-hearted. I cut her off at once, voice dripping with sarcasm. Mum, what do you mean by that? Are you implying I'm lying? I still have the photo on my phone that Tam posted showing off the car. I assumed she'd already asked for your permission. Tran Nuok Tam was caught in the middle, her face on the verge of tears. She turned to Dad and mumbled softly, Daddy, I just wanted to buy a bag. My father's cold gaze shifted to Tu Lam Yen. He ground out each word. Look at your daughter. That card was given to Nuok So for studying and preparing for exams. And your daughter took it and splurged on bags and a car I knew very well. My father absolutely despised reckless spending. Back in the day, he and my mother had built their business from scratch. Every penny was hard-earned and saved with care. He never tolerated wastefulness, especially not when the money was earned by someone else. Tu was speechless. Tran Nuok Tam, terrified, immediately hid behind her mother. My father's voice thundered with anger. Tran Nuok Tam, tomorrow you return the car immediately. Don't ever let this happen again. After saying that, he pulled out the phone that had been buzzing in his pocket, checked it for a moment, then rushed out of the house. The moment he left, Tran Nuok Tam glared at me. Why did you do this to me? Did you plan this? Why did you give me Dad's card? I feigned innocence, turning to her, sweetie. I didn't have any other card with 100,000 on it. You'd already maxed out the others. But I couldn't bear to say no to you. Tran Nuok Tam froze. I glanced at her eyes sharp as a blade, then calmly walked past the mother and daughter heading straight upstairs. Inside, I felt immensely satisfied. The next morning, while the whole family was having breakfast, Tran Nuok Tam suddenly apologized to me and invited me to a party she was hosting. I nodded in agreement. Half a month later, the day of the party arrived. Tran Nuok Tam and I rode together to the front of the hotel. That day, she wore a pale yellow dress, adorable and radiant. Nuok Tam, congrats, I heard you got into Tsinghua. That's right, don't forget about us when you're at Tsinghua. I want to cling to the goddess of academics. The moment we walked in, a crowd of classmates surrounded her with non-stop congratulations. Her best friend Lam Tu Lam shot me a glance, then curled her lip into a smirk. Who would have thought that Tran Nuok, so once top of the class, would end up failing the college entrance exam and repeating a year? What a cruel joke from fate. So what if you were number 1? You couldn't even fill in the answer sheet properly. She said it loud enough for everyone to turn and stare at me. Tran Nuok Tam pinched her elbow. Tu Lam. Why would you say that? She's still my sister. Lamb to Lamb scoffed, unbothered. So what if she's your sister? Even if she's your biological sister, she's no better than you. You've got designer bags, a car. I'm dying of jealousy. Your dad clearly favors you more. At that, Tran Nuoc Tam's face turned white, but Lamb to Lamb didn't notice. She slung her arm around her and led her to the center of the party like she was the female lead. Ha! Tran Nuoc Tam really is the one with the potential to inherit Tran Corporation. So what if I'm the biological daughter? I'd still get crushed by her. Hearing Lamb to Lamb's inner thoughts, I simply smiled and shook my head. Where does she get the confidence to think my father would favor an illegitimate child over his own daughter? Tran Nuoc Tam was seated in the center. Everyone surrounded her with endless praise, making her face bloom like a flower. A few hours passed and dusk began to fall. Lamb to Lamb prepared to lead the group to the next venue and called the staff over to settle the bill. A server brought the card reader to Tran Nuoc Tam and politely asked, "How would you like to pay?" Miss Tran Nuoc Tam flashed a graceful smile, slowly pulling a silver card from her purse. "This one? Beep, beep, beep." The staff paused, looking slightly troubled. "I'm sorry, miss, this card shows insufficient funds. Do you have another card?" Tran Nuoc? Tam's face instantly changed. She stammered, "Maybe I grabbed the wrong card." She quickly rummaged through her purse, switched to another card, and handed it over. But one by one, every card she tried was declined. All of them had been frozen. "No, no way," Tran Nuoc Tam muttered in disbelief. People around started whispering. The atmosphere grew incredibly awkward. Her face turned even paler by the second. The staff standing nearby looked just as uneasy. The banquet hall fell dead silent. Lamb to Lamb gave a stiff smile, glanced at the bill, her face drained of all colour, and immediately took a few steps back, clearly not planning to cover the cost. I smirked, slightly stood up and spoke in a calm, unhurried voice, "I'll pay." Every eye in the room instantly turned toward me, filled with surprise and relief, as if I was some kind of saviour. I reached out, pulled out a black card and gracefully handed it to the staff. Meanwhile, Tran Nuoc Tam sat frozen in her seat, her face ashen like dust. Beep, beep, beep. After the payment went through, it was like a weight had been lifted from the room. Everyone exhaled in unison. I smiled slightly and turned to look at Tran Nuoc Tam. "Oh, right. Almost forgot to tell you. Since you spent the 10 million on your own, Dad froze all your cards. All the money in those accounts had been transferred out too. Dad said you should take some time to reflect." As soon as I finished, every eye shifted toward Tran Nuoc Tam, who was sitting at the center of it all. She bit her lip, her face filled with frustration. Even Lamb to Lamb quietly withdrew her hand from Nuoc Tam's and took a subtle step back. Tran Nuoc Tam trembled with rage, then suddenly slammed her hand on the table with a loud bang. "Tran Nuoc. So you did this on purpose, didn't you? You knew everything beforehand and came here just to humiliate me, right? Yesterday was all just an act, wasn't it? Everything you did was just to watch me get embarrassed." The entire room froze in fear. No one dared say a word. I rested my chin on my hand and calmly looked up at her. "Well, yeah, so what you want to say? You invited me here today without any motives. I just bailed you out. Shouldn't I at least get a thank you?" I glanced at the bill in my hand and chuckled. 30,000, make sure to pay me back when you get home. You... Tran Nuoc Tam's face turned red with fury. Lamb to Lamb quickly rubbed her back and chimed in, Tam, don't be mad. She's obviously just jealous you got into Tsinghua. I mean, come on. It's not like anyone can get in just because they want to." That seemed to soothe Tran Nuoc Tam a little. I smirked, leaned in closer and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. "Nuoc Tam, your score. You really don't know how you got it, huh?" She froze for a moment. She couldn't know. No way. She didn't have proof. Hearing her thoughts only confirmed it for me. Something was off about her college entrance score. A girl who had to cheat during oral exams couldn't have gotten into Tsinghua. I first discovered her cheating purely by accident at school. I had my doubts until the day I saw Tran Nguyen Tam and Lam Tu Lam dragging the second-ranked student in class, Lu Ki Ki, into the gym storage room. "I don't want to cheat anymore. Can't you just leave me alone?" Lu Ki Ki's choked voice came through. I had been walking by and stopped in my tracks. "Lu Ki Ki, it's too late to back out now. I already paid for your aunt's surgery, and now you're gonna change your mind." Tran Nguyen Tam had her hands on her hips, glaring down at Lu Ki Ki. "But last time we almost got caught." "What if the teachers find out I still want to go to college? I need that scholarship." Lam Tu Lam smirked. "Don't worry, if anything happens, I'll take the fall." At that moment, I truly couldn't believe my eyes. I never imagined my sweet little sister, who always acted so obedient and clingy, had such a different side to her. Still back then, I chalked it up to a rebellious phase growing up without her real dad. Maybe she clung to mine out of insecurity. Because of that, I pitied her even more and tried to help however I could. Later, I tried to talk to Lu Ki Ki only to find out she had transferred schools. Thinking about it now, I narrowed my eyes and stared straight at Tran Nguyen Tam. She flinched, but quickly regained her composure. "Tran Nguyen, so don't slander me just because you failed the exam. I got my score fair and square." Looking at her confident front, I didn't bother exposing her. I just smiled faintly and turned to leave the party without a moment's hesitation. That night, after I got home and had dinner, I went back to my room. During that time, Tran Nguyen Tam still hadn't come back. "Nuok So," D2 appeared at my door holding a cup of warm milk. "Nuok, so did you and Tam Tam have a fight?" "Yesterday was Tam Tam's fault. I'm here to apologize on her behalf. She must have heard about what happened this morning and was now here to try to smooth things over for her daughter." My eyes stopped at the steaming cup of milk in her hands, and I couldn't help but recall my previous life. Back then, I truly saw her as my real mother. Every time Dad was strict and made me study, she would step in and defend me, saying he shouldn't put so much pressure on me, always pretending to understand. She even took cooking classes to learn how to make dishes I liked, then prepared them for me herself. On my birthday, the one even Dad forgot she remembered, and made me a strawberry cake. I had no idea it was all just part of her plan to win me over. In my past life before I died, I was robbed and kidnapped. Everything I had on me was stolen. I missed my flight and was left in a dark alley. It was already winter, then snow falling heavily. I was wearing only my undergarments curled up in a corner, hot tears streaming down my cheeks, but they didn't warm me one bit. The fear and loneliness of that night came rushing back so much that even now in the middle of summer, I felt like I was surrounded by icy air. My eyes moved from the cup of milk to D2's face. I replied coldly, "Apologize." If she really knew she was wrong, then why isn't she the one saying it to me? Why is it her mother? Instead, after humiliating me in front of so many people, do you think I don't see through her little schemes? My voice was ice cold enough to make D2 flinch. This little bitch, I only tried being nice for a second, and she dares talk to me like that? Fine. Let her be smug for now. Soon enough, I'll make her regret it. Hearing her thoughts, I curled my lips into a faint smile. She furrowed her brow and continued, "Nuok, so I'll discipline her properly. You don't need to worry. I'll definitely make it right for you." I turned my face away. But then she stepped closer and suddenly hugged me tightly. Her body warmth passed on to me, yet it made my skin crawl like a cold shiver running through me. I lowered my head, clenched my fists, and silently reminded myself, "Tran Nguyen, so now is not the time. You have to endure it." A few minutes later, I calmly spoke, "Mum, if this is what you want, then I agree." It had been a week since the university entrance exam results were released. Every day, I only did two things: study and sleep. Maybe she had really been scolded by her mother, because recently Tran Nguyen Tam had been surprisingly quiet, barely showing up in front of me. But every time we accidentally crossed paths, the look in her eyes was no longer that pitiful, innocent expression. Instead, her face now clearly showed resentment. Today was the weekend and Dad was home too. After breakfast, the whole family sat in the living room watching the news, hot topic of the day. Many parents had gathered in front of the Department of Education to protest, suspecting their children's college entrance scores had been tampered with. Reports showed over 30,000 people had already joined in. This morning, the department officially released a statement confirming that they had launched an investigation and promised a fair outcome. The moment the TV came on, it was already showing news about the university exams. Feigning indifference, I casually said, "Wow, I didn't expect so many test scores had been tampered with, Dad. Those poor students, 3 years of hard work only to have their results changed, what a waste." As soon as I said that, the room fell into an eerie silence. My father frowned, eyes glued to the screen. Behind us, Ditu and Tran Nguyen Tam's faces had gone pale as sheets. What's going on? Why are people suddenly suspicious about the test scores and making a fuss? This isn't what I expected. Could it be that Tran Tung is starting to suspect something too? Ditu's frantic inner voice echoed in my head. I turned away and curled my lips into a quiet, knowing smile. Suddenly, my father sprang up from his seat, his face stern. He quickly grabbed his coat and said, "I just remembered I have something urgent to take care of. I won't be home for dinner tonight." I gave a small nod. A little over 10 minutes later, I glanced around and realized both D2 and Tran Nguyen Tam were gone. I asked the housekeeper and she replied, "Madam and Tran Nguyen Tam just left. They said it was something urgent." I immediately hailed a taxi, showed the driver a location on my phone. "Uncle, please take me here." When I got out, I put on a hat and sunglasses and walked into a modest coffee shop. I chose a seat directly behind D2 and Tran Nguyen Tam. "You're sure this won't trace back to us, right? The teacher you worked with. Can he really be trusted? What if he spills everything after being asked a few questions?" D2 lowered her voice, but she was clearly tense. A man's voice reassured her, "Don't worry, Mrs. Lam, there's no way it'll get back to us. He already took the 2 million. If he talks, he'll be charged with fraud too." At that, D2 finally let out a sigh of relief. "That's good. My Tam-Tam is about to start at Tsinghua. If she loses that over this, it'd be such a waste. Make sure nothing goes wrong, understand? Sitting right behind them." I hid my face with a newspaper, quietly recording every word of their conversation. Just then, a familiar male voice rang out, shouting in fury, "Is that true? You cheated and still think you deserve a spot at Tsinghua." Startled by the voice, I whipped around. I'd been so focused on listening I didn't even notice. My father was here too. He had just walked past me, Lam Yen. "I can't believe you'd stoop so low. I'm beyond disappointed in you." My father was so angry he raised his hand to strike her, but halfway through he froze, then slowly lowered his arm and exhaled in frustration. I had always known he would eventually uncover the truth, I just didn't expect it to happen this soon. In fact, I had heard his inner thoughts a week ago. He had already begun to suspect Tran Nguyen Tam's results, but lacked solid evidence. So I sought out Lu Ki and asked her to write a full statement. I printed it out and carried it with me. It detailed how Kai had been coerced into helping Tran Nguyen Tam cheat during the college entrance exam. I also discovered that Lu Ki didn't transfer schools voluntarily. It was because a teacher had found out about the cheating. Tran Nguyen Tam bribed the teacher and, fearing Kiki would talk, conspired with him to force her to leave the school. Kai should have taken the exam with us that year, but because of the transfer, she missed it and had to wait until the following year. The cost of another year of prep was something she simply couldn't afford. Kai told me everything through tears and promised she would go speak to my father herself. She also handed over all the proof test papers and assignments that showed the cheating to him. As for me, I had anonymously filed a complaint about the tampered scores, along with many other students and parents who had suspicions. It took a month for the issue to explode into what it was today. "Tran Tung, why are you here?" D2 stammered in panic. "No, it's not what you think. My father's face turned beet red with anger. "There's solid evidence in front of me and you still dare to lie, Lam Yen. You've brought disgrace to this entire family. Just look at the kind of daughter you've raised." With that, my father picked up his phone and started dialing. "Hello, Director Liu, I need to report something. My wife and daughter may be involved in falsifying university exam scores." He had taken the initiative to contact the head of the Education Bureau, reported his suspicions about Tran Nguyen Tam's scores, and requested a full investigation into her results. At that moment, Tran Nguyen Tam was curled up by the window, sobbing uncontrollably from fear. Ditu was frantic. She rushed to grab the phone from my father's hand. "Tran Tung, no matter what, Tran Nguyen Tam is still your daughter. You've lived with her for 3 years. How can you be so heartless?" She beat her fists against his chest, completely unprepared for the fact that he had called to report them without a second's hesitation. My father responded coldly, "Lam Yen, if you've done wrong, then you need to admit it and return what doesn't belong to you. You should take a good look at yourself." He cast a glance at Tran Nguyen Tam, then ordered the bodyguards to take them away. I was just about to quietly slip out of the cafe when a shadow fell over me. Turning around, it was my father standing right beside me. His voice was firm Nyuk. "So stop running away." His bodyguards escorted me into the car. "When did you find out about all this?" my father asked from the front seat, his tone strict like a command. I lowered the window and calmly answered, "After the college entrance exam. The same day you said you wanted to send me abroad. It was because I could hear people's inner thoughts. That's how I knew." I shrugged slightly but left the second half of that sentence unsaid. My father's brow eased slightly. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and said, "Nook, so well done." I froze for a second. He turned to look at me, eyes filled with certainty and pride. "Nook, so you've grown up." After that, I went home with him. He didn't bring up the matter again. In the days that followed, he was so busy that he hardly came home. The college entrance exam cheating scandal caused a massive uproar. From our school alone, more than 100 cases of altered scores were discovered. Among them was Lam Tu Lam. Several people closely connected to Tran Nguyen Tam were suspected of involvement. And the person whose score had been swapped to elevate Tran Nguyen Tam was me. When my father learned the truth, he was stunned. He probably never imagined that it was all because Tran Nguyen Tam, out of jealousy, had stolen my exam results. It was Tran Nguyen Tam. She told us she had connections with the examiners and could change scores. She was the mastermind. No, I didn't. It was you all who begged me to help. Inside the police interrogation room, the principal and a few teachers were also present. My father stood to the side, eyes fixed on Tran Nguyen Tam. Lam Tu Lam and Tran Nguyen Tam were accusing each other non-stop, both trying to dodge responsibility. Suddenly, D2 couldn't hold back any longer. She dropped to her knees in front of my father, tears streaming down her face. "Tran Tung Tam Tam is your daughter too. I'm begging you. Please save her. She's still young. She didn't know any better. She can't go to jail." At the word jail, Tran Nguyen Tam's face went deathly pale. She collapsed onto the floor in despair. My father pressed his lips together, unmoved, unmoving. In the end, due to the lack of direct evidence and the consistency of Lam Tu Lam's group's testimonies, only Tran Nguyen Tam was placed in temporary custody. The others were banned from taking the college entrance exam for the next 5 years. After handwriting samples were verified, the original scores of the wronged students, including mine, were restored. When I received my test papers and saw my corrected results, I was so stunned I gaped in silence. Because beside my name on the ranking list was a huge number 1. It turned out my original score had been deliberately lowered, and I was actually the top scorer of the entire city. The next day, I finally got back my admission letter from Tsinghua University, the one that had rightfully belonged to me. Classmates and teachers who once ignored me now flooded my phone with messages of congratulations. I didn't bother replying. I had no interest in reconnecting with people who once turned their backs on me. Just as I closed my phone and hadn't even sat upright yet, bang, a loud crash from downstairs startled me. I rushed down and saw D2 slumped on the sofa, face full of despair. My father stood across from her, eyes burning with fury. On the floor were shattered pieces, a vase had been smashed. Divorce Tran Tung. You're really that cruel? I've been by your side for 3 years. Not only do you refuse to save my daughter, now you want to divorce me too. You monster! She screamed and hurled a glass cup straight at my father. I cried out in shock, but my father caught the cup cleanly mid-air before it could hit him. Monster, he replied coldly. Lam Yen, you've truly disappointed me. Because of the kindness from the past, I gave you and your daughter a place in this family. And this is how you repay me, by scheming against Nyok So. As he finished speaking, he raised his hand and gave a signal. The bodyguards dragged a man into the room. It was Lam Hao D2's younger brother, technically my uncle. Sister, please save me. I was just following your orders. Please don't let brother-in-law sue me. I don't want to go to jail. Lam Hao's face was bruised and bloodied, a smear of dried blood at the corner of his mouth. His limbs were tightly bound, and he knelt on the floor gasping, barely conscious. My father let out a cold snort and tossed a stack of documents onto the table, copies of a deleted chat between D2 and Lam Hao. In it, they discussed in detail how to eliminate me. Sis, everything's set, just waiting for Tran Nuokso to leave the country. Heh. As long as she goes, she won't come back alive. Good work. Once I get the company, I'll give you 10% of the shares. I turned to my father in shock. So, he had known everything all along. D2 trembled violently, screaming, "No, it wasn't me." My father's eyes darkened, his voice like ice. Lam Yen, you wicked woman. If Nuokso hadn't decided against studying abroad herself, she might have died in a foreign land by now. You dare accuse me without proof? Without another word, my father picked up a jar of supplements and hurled it at her. The pills scattered across the floor. And these so-called supplements, they were laced with poison. And you still claim to know nothing. D2's face turned ashen, her eyes fixated on the pills rolling across the floor in horror. These pills, why? She stared at Lam Hao, completely unhinged. Didn't you say they would just make her tired? Lam Hao, you lied to me. Enough! My father roared, pressing a hand to his forehead, his face drawn with exhaustion. If you still want to talk, save it for the police. Panic-stricken D2 fell to her knees. No, Tran Tung, I never wanted you to die. That medicine, I really didn't know Lam Hao had tampered with it. She crawled forward, grabbing the hem of my father's trousers, sobbing, Tran Tung, I truly love you. I was just too jealous, if not for Nuok. So if not for that girl, you would have been mine and my daughter's. I never wanted to hurt you. She shook her head wildly, completely unraveling. I stared at the pills on the ground, a sudden realization dawning on me. In my past life, when I died tragically abroad, there's no way my father would have stood by and done nothing. Now it all makes sense. He probably died at their hands too. Enough, Lam Yen, I will not allow a disaster like you to remain in this house. Take her away. Several bodyguards in black entered and dragged both D2 and Lam Hao out of the villa. My father walked over to me and stopped in front of me. His eyes shone with remorse. I'm sorry, Nuokso. It was my fault. As the mastermind, Tran Nyuk Tam was permanently banned from taking the college entrance exam, my father publicly announced their divorce and exposed the full conspiracy between D2 and Lam Hao. Eventually, it was confirmed that Lam Hao had poisoned my father's supplements on his own. As for D2, what she really wanted was the remaining 50% of the company shares in my possession. She wanted to drive me out of the Tran family so she and my father could become a real family. 1 month before I began university at Tsinghua, I decided to spend that time traveling the world. When I returned to Nam Corporation, I happened to run into Tran Nuok Tam in front of a restaurant. She was being scolded harshly by the manager right at the entrance. What's wrong with you, huh? You only had to serve the dish yet. You spilled oil all over the customer. Do you think you're some kind of heiress? Instead of apologizing, you argued and said it wasn't your fault. Tran Nuok Tam furiously argued back, I didn't do anything wrong. He startled me by speaking too loudly. That's why I slipped. Besides, it's not like his torn shirt getting dirty matters. Why should I pay 800 yuan? I only make 150 yuan a day. Where am I supposed to get 800? The manager was so angry she pointed straight at her face. You haven't even graduated high school. I only hired you out of pity. And now you're pulling this kind of attitude. If you hadn't acted that way, one apology would have settled everything. Even if the customer complained, Tran Nguyen Tam's face turned red from the scolding. Several people had already gathered to watch the drama unfold. She blinked rapidly, eyes brimming with tears, but she stubbornly clenched her teeth and refused to bow her head. Seeing that scene, I was truly surprised. Even after leaving D2, Tran Nguyen Tam was still that arrogant, still refused to bow her head, even though now she had absolutely nothing left. Miss Tran. Another manager from the restaurant spotted me and immediately came over to greet me. I was a VIP guest here. Right then, Tran Nguyen Tam turned around and recognized me too. Tran Nguyen. So, her eyes looked like they were about to shoot fire as she charged at me, pointed and yelled, "This is all your fault. Seeing me like this, you must be thrilled, huh? Tran Nguyen, so get lost." Without knowing anything, she pointed at me and cursed in broad daylight. The manager beside me turned pale, bowing, while apologizing and quickly pulling Tran Nguyen Tam away. I stepped closer, smirking provocatively. Tran Nguyen Tam. I didn't expect you to still have so much pride, still so stubborn. Look at you now, barely able to afford a meal, and yet you're still trying to hold your head up. I stood tall, head raised, and said slowly, "If you'd just bow your head, maybe I'd give you a tip, enough to add a chicken drumstick to your meal." Tran Nguyen Tam was so furious her face turned purple, stomping her foot and raising her hand ready to scratch me. Several managers quickly stepped in front of me. I didn't even spare her another glance as I walked into the restaurant with my back straight. The first of the month came quickly. I woke up very early. The sky was grey and drizzling. Holding a bouquet of white flowers, I walked under an umbrella to my mother's grave. Looking at the picture of her smiling brightly on the tombstone, I couldn't help but remember what happened 10 years ago. Back then, I was only 8 left at home in the care of a nanny. "Mum, it's my birthday the day after tomorrow. Will you come home? There will be so many friends. I really want to see you." I whimpered over the phone. Her voice was gentle. "Be good, Tuso. I'll come home today. Just wait for me at home, all right?" She took the 6 o'clock flight, but when she was less than 10 kilometers from home, her car skidded and crashed into another. Both cars caught fire. There was a massive explosion and fierce flames. My mother died on the spot. Overnight, I became a child without a mother. I used to blame myself for begging her to come back. If I hadn't made that call, maybe she wouldn't have died. After the funeral, fearing psychological trauma, my father pushed aside all his work to stay by my side, helping me cope. I had nightmares for 5 years, only starting to accept reality and live like a normal child again at age 13. After that, every year on Mum's death anniversary, my father and I would visit her grave together. Even after he remarried, he kept his promise. He would never forget Mum. But last year, he broke that promise. On Mum's death day, he didn't come. I waited from early morning until sunset, but he never showed up. When I was heartbroken and disappointed, D2 told me he had gone to someone else's wedding and banquet that day. That shock made me lock myself in my room that night, crying under the blanket non-stop. I was afraid he no longer had a place for Mum in his heart, that he had forgotten all the beautiful memories of our family, the 3 of us. And today, he didn't come either. I stood in front of her grave, quietly looking at the tombstone, my heart sinking. At that moment, the cemetery keeper heard something at the gate and walked toward me. "You came early this year, huh?" I smiled gently and nodded. He chuckled. "You and your dad really are alike, always coming so early and making me open up before dawn." "What do you mean?" I asked, surprised looking up at him. He laughed. "Your father came very early last year too. Before the sun even rose, he came to visit your mum, brought a bouquet. I honestly thought I saw a ghost. Also, I remember the cleaning lady came in too early that day and accidentally swept the flowers away. I still feel bad about that. Hearing that, my mind suddenly went blank. A warm feeling quietly rose in my heart. So, Dad didn't forget. He just came early to visit Mum, then went to the wedding afterward. Suddenly, the cemetery keeper looked delighted, eyes gazing behind me. There he is. I instinctively turned around and saw Dad standing there. His hair was a bit messy, forehead dotted with sweat. He was panting lightly. Huok. So, I'm sorry, I'm late. My nose stung and I almost cried. I held back the tears and smiled softly. It's okay. You're not late at all. He stood beside me, both of us silently looking at Mum's grave. After a while he said, Nuok so. Dad let you down. I didn't keep your mother's wishes. I didn't take good care of you. I shouldn't have remarried recklessly or trusted the wrong people. But you don't need to worry. From now on, I won't be like that anymore. From now on, I'll only have one daughter. You. I'll take care of you properly, I promise. Hearing that, my heart warmed. I lowered my head slightly. After a moment, I looked up and smiled brightly. Then let's pinky, promise, okay? Family life isn't always as peaceful as it seems. Truth and schemes often lie hidden in the closest relationships. Trust and honesty are essential foundations. Material wealth can never replace a person's true value. No matter the betrayal or failure we face, persistence and the will to prove ourselves will carry us through any storm. But most of all, we must remain sincere and learn to protect ourselves from the injustices of life.